Welcome back to Basics. So this episode, we find ourselves on Duna. We're actually going to be returning home our heroes. We're going to bring the crew back from Duna and from Elu. Welcome back. So here we are. We're on Duna, and before we go anywhere, we actually have to do a bit of science that we didn't finish off. So one of the things that this craft brought with it were the science components from Breaking Ground. So what we need to do is actually set them up. Now, originally, I had planned for Nakot to be accompanied by a scientist. It seems the scientist was knocked unconscious and replaced by this character. Is it Ludo? We do have a scientist, very similar name. I then thought that this was actually an engineer that I decided to put on so that we get extra power, and it is not. It is that we have two pilots in the craft. I don't need two pilots in this craft. So we don't have an engineer for extra electricity for the science stuff, and we don't have a scientist to redo our experiments. So a bit of a fail on that one. But anyway, so all the scientific equipment is set up. We take all the samples we can from outside the craft because this bottom half of the craft is going to probably be staying behind. So we try and get everything we can out of it, make sure everything's okay. Check all the science equipment, get back in the craft, make sure we've got at least one copy of everything. We actually dump a lot. And then we take off. In a minute. I do try and repack the parachutes because I think he's an engineer at this point, and then I realise that no, he isn't an engineer, he can't do anything. We also have to remember to unlock all of our fuel tanks, so I make sure to unlock those. And we take off, and we actually use some of the fuel from this landing stage. I've actually changed the fuel priorities. You can go into the tank and actually change the fuel priority. We upped that so they would actually empty first, because there's a little bit of fuel left in it, and I know that we're tight on Delta V, or I think we're tight on Delta V. So I'm thinking I can transfer fuel from the return stage of this to the main craft for its trip back to Kerbin. So every drop of fuel I save is good. Now, I detach the extra stage and try and lose it, and yeah, but that problem that we had on the Mun, it seems to have got worse. So I really should have redesigned this lander stage a little bit. I think the engines are just a little tight to the way that I've actually got the tanks there. So if I was redoing it, I'd probably just edge the engine slightly across a little bit. You can do that. You just use the part tool just to move it slightly out, and I think we'd then not have a problem. The thing to remember is the nuclear engines have a little interesting sort of collision mesh in places. So just aware of that. So we get into orbit pretty easily. We do have quite a bit of Delta V left, and I'm quite happy about this because I'm thinking to myself that's quite a bit of fuel we can use. Remember, it's only liquid fuel, and we've only got a nuclear engine on the return stage, so we've got pure sort of fuel there. We don't have excess material hanging around. So we get into an orbit, and then I start to look around for, right, I need to dock. So we've got a point on the far side there that is at the same altitude, and I start moving around and realise that's never going to give us a nice close approach unless I do some sort of manoeuvres. And this is very much just a fiddly manoeuvre play now. In an ideal world, I would probably have positioned ourselves so that we were on completely separate orbits, but we've got this overlap, and it does make it a little annoying at times, actually, because you start to refocus on that. You will see there's a maneuver node on the other track. This is because the other craft is, I think, out of electricity or out of signal at some point, and it's actually got a maneuver node we set up originally, and it just floats around, so it will appear every now and again. So we have our maneuver, and it's actually going to be a burn where the two are closest to each other, and it's actually going to be to take us on the far side there to a reasonably close approach. I think it takes us within a couple of kilometers. It's not brilliant, and it does mean that actually our speed difference is going to be very small when we actually get to that. So we go around the planet a few times. This craft's got plenty of fuel and electricity and whatnot to do this. We take our burn there, and we're now pretty much in the same orbit, but you can actually see our lander is on a slightly lower periaps, so it will actually go faster at points than the actual the orbiter there. We rearrange our position a little bit, burn towards, and when we just start doing the burning towards the target, and then we get a bit closer, we zero out our speed or bring it near 0. We don't need to bring it perfectly to 0. And then we'll turn and burn back at the target again. Give us a little bit of time to go. Again, this wasn't the perfect of rendezvous. There was quite a bit of distance between us on this rendezvous. I'd have liked to have probably done it a little bit better, but yeah, we weren't burning too much fuel. And you'll see most of these moves, I'm actually using the main engines, the nuclear engines. I could have used RCS for this. I was aware that RCS was in limited supply on this craft. And I probably didn't need to be because of the way that I ended up docking. In reality, I could probably have done most of this without RCS. I could have gone a lot lower on RCS content, but it's always better to have and not need than need and not have. And then we get nice and close, and now we're just burning our nuclear engines at our orbiter because that's the sensor. This is where we really should be using RCS. We should really use it. There we go. What I should have done is actually turn it the other way before I did this, but I was still thinking of using the nuclear engines. And then we have an interesting little dance here where we basically move closer and closer and closer, and both craft are targeting each other. And I just stopped because I can just see them spinning crazily, and it's just going to really do my head in. So I position myself on one, and then we just allow them to settle a little bit, and then we move in again. And again, this time it's nice, easy. We did come very quick there, and then docked, really simple. Craft is docked, wonderful. I then reposition the craft because I want those hatches to be near each other, because I may have to go from one craft to the other on the outside. I always like it to look sort of at least as if I could do that, even though you're using the transfer thing. We move a Kerbal across to get the science out of the lander and put it into the command pod now. And then I basically move all the fuel I can. You can see me going through all these tanks, just working through all of those tanks and just getting every drop of fuel out I can. And I'm just trying to work my way through that. Now, I have a bad experience with these. You'll see I actually select all of them and then do this try and get this transfer to go on. It is a faff. You can start up doing that, and then yeah. Anyway, back on Elu, we have our veteran. Bob is still sat there on Elu. He's doing a little bit of science. He's getting his final bits of science. He's already put his flag down and everything, and he's actually done this science already. But he's going to try and go up to the orbiter now because Elu is cold and he does not like it there. He's done his science. He feels as though he's achieved everything that he needs to achieve. And so up he goes. So we launch up. The whole of this craft is going up into orbit. It is a very light, compared to our previous example there on Duna. The Elu craft is a lot lighter. It's more minimalized. Now, in reality, this is going to be fly-by-wire by computer because our scientists are not good at controlling craft. So it's got a probe core on there that's going to do most of this work for it, and it's got an antenna. So you'll see I actually launched the craft. It looks as though I was trying to get a rendezvous straight away. I wasn't. I was actually just launching it in a sort of sensible time period where it was going to get signal, and the other craft just happened to go over the top. I could have gone for a direct rendezvous. I was actually being just more careful about getting this right because this landing craft has, as you can see, very little fuel left in it. Now, it has enough for maneuvers right now, but it's very easy if you mess up your launch from the surface to lose all of that and you go plummeting straight back to the ground. So this is more of a standard-ish sort of burner. I've actually overburned on takeoff there. So we've now got these sort of overlapping rings, and I basically do a load of radial burns. So instead of a prograde retrograde burn and standard Hoffman transfer, I'm actually doing a radial set of burns to try and get this closest approach. And then combining it. So you can see there that is definitely not a prograde or retrograde burn. It's a bit of a random location burn. And I'm just playing around now to try and get us into this sort of this range, this point where we can actually get a close approach. And I'm using the lander for this. The lander has a liquid fuel, an oxidizer standard engine. I cannot use the oxidizer with a nuclear engine. So in my mind, that's wasted mass if I get the orbiter to do this work. So I'm just going to use as much of this as I can to get a nice interaction there. So you can see, I can now actually see in the craft view, not just the map view. I can see how close I am to my target, which is really nice because Elu's so small. I can actually see that. I am again trying to make sure that our closest approach is near to having signal. I don't want to be around the back of Elu when I get signal, because I will have locks on all of my maneuver nodes and things like that, and I really want to use them now because, yeah, scientists are not great pilots. In an ideal world, I'd actually have a 2-man capsule here, and we'd actually have a pilot on board, and it would solve all my problems. So, as always, we're going to point our craft towards target, and I decide, because we're reasonably close, to just sort of go for it. I think at this point it's just sort of a case of, you know what, let's just burn towards each other and see what happens. I know my fuel's down to the sort of 50 meters per second, but that's more than enough to do this. So we just let the two craft move towards each other. At this point, their closest approach, I think, was within sort of 30 meters, and it was just a case of edging it around. So we turn round, and then it's just a case of move in nice and slowly. And it was quite a hefty bump there. So there we go. We're back into orbit. We're next to our orbiter. Our transfer stage back there is available to us. Bob jumps across. He runs back up into his special headbutt the other craft, and he's trying to get the science out. And then I realise, you know what? Let's just do the other trick. We'll just rotate the craft round. We do so, and then go back into dock again. Whoop-de-doo, nice and magnetic. Now, I would normally suggest not leaving a craft unmanned like that. I've now positioned it so that we can do the special patented get out of pod and headbutt the RCS tank. So if you see, there he goes, into the RCS tank, straight into the craft there, wonderful. A little bit of EVA for him. Now, we're going to do what we did with the other craft. We're actually going to transfer all the fuel we can across. And then I realised that I actually hit one tank, and now they're unbalanced, so I have to spend a bit of time trying to rebalance my tanks. Unbalanced fuel tanks are a nightmare. So if you do something like that, figure out a way of sorting it. Now, what I would normally do is, if I have an arrangement like this, I would always have a central tank I could actually pump some of the fuel to try and balance it out. I'm going to lose those side compartments, so I can't do that. Now, back to Duna. Duna is preparing itself for its return burn. Get a nice shot there of Duna in its atmosphere. So we've got a nice burn now where we're going to be burning in the opposite direction to travel of the planet. We're going to go in basically like we're going to try and drop our orbit down towards Kerbal so that we can actually meet Kerbin. And I didn't show you on the map screen doing that because, you know what, you've seen a lot of that in previous episodes with Duna, and you're going to see a bit more with the Elu one, so I don't need to show you all of that. But you can actually see there's Kerbin, we've got it targeted, and you can see our orbit is coming down and down and down. You can see there's a predicted intercept there, and this is an easy burn. If you have to do interplanetary travel, this is the one to do. The exception being probably Eve. Eve is the easiest to sort of hit and capture around with low levels of delta V. Joule is easy not to miss, but Duna is low delta V, pretty easy. Yeah. So now we're just going to tidy up we actually overshoot. Considering I'm low on delta V, I overshoot, which I think we just summed up the mission perfectly for me. You'll see I've actually got quite a lot of delta V left at this point. I think my concerns regarding delta V were probably unfounded. If I was going to try and keep the whole craft in Kerbin orbit, and I wasn't going to just dump it into the atmosphere, yeah. So, back on Elu, or around Elu, we're just finishing off, and you'll notice I'm going to detach the bottom half of the lander. Now, I've kept the top half. The main reason for that being that you see those solar panels on the main craft, they are attached to tanks that I will drop along with their RCS, because I don't need the RCS after docking. But it does mean I don't have a source of power. So, number one, to give us a source of power, and number two, because I don't like my Kerbals when they're on long missions having basically very cramped conditions. In a one-man capsule is a very cramped condition. We're going to keep hold of his landing craft, or the landing containment, or the part of it where he can actually live in, and that can be like his bedroom or whatnot. Obviously, he's going to be stir crazy after this mission because he has been on his own for years. I think we're on three years now. This mission has been going, and he's been on his own. and communications from Kerbal are going to be poor. So we set up our burn, and you'll see in the bottom there, the burn has actually gone red. That means that we're going to run out of fuel for this burn. We don't have enough available fuel. That is because the center tank is locked at the moment, because I'm burning those outer tanks. I also start to burn the RCS fuel because we have no use for it anymore. So you'll see that I've waited a little bit and I'm just burning my RCS fuel, trying to get rid of that at the same rate as we get rid of the liquid fuel in those outer tanks. And you'll see that we almost actually have enough fuel for this return trip just from that. What I will say is we have a lot of Delta V left hidden, because as soon as we get rid of that and then we unlock those 3 tanks, we've got thousands of Delta V left, and we've done that's our burn into roughly the near the sphere influence of Kerbin. Right, back to the Duna mission. So that's been flying through space while Bob's been waiting to come home, and it's now coming into the sphere of influence of Kerbin, and we're just changing our periaps. We want to dip into the atmosphere. We're not going to try an aerobrake. We're actually going to come straight in for a landing. So we've gone for about 35 kilometers up. Any shallower than that, and we are liable to skip out the atmosphere, potentially, and straight out of the Kerbin system. So you notice there that I actually put us into the normal or anti-normal position before I decoupled. That is so that I don't change minimize the change in periaps. If I'd have actually just stayed in normal orientation and done that, we could have actually changed the depth we're going into the atmosphere, and I didn't want to risk it. So we burn our way through the atmosphere. You can see the heat shield's getting a little warm there, but yeah, not a major issue. The camera's spinning all over the place, and I'm trying to control it. It's a very, a standard return. At this point, I was sort of thinking, hold on, how many parachutes have I got on this? And I could see 2 on the left-hand side, and then I realised that actually I've hidden away the drogue chutes. They are actually there. There's 2 sets of 2 parachutes, and there are the drogue chutes. They're actually hidden away. They're not clipped. They're actually just below the probe core or sideways. So a nice little way to hide them. Sometimes putting parachutes or lots of parachutes on these capsules is a big thing. So they open up nicely. We come down. Lovely view of the moon there setting over the water or rising over the water with some clouds. We come down and we have our first Kerbals back from Duna. So back out in space, poor Bob all alone. It's 4 years now, approaching 5 years. He's doing his plane change maneuver. He's still got a long way to go. Now, he looks as though he's still a long way out, but actually he's travelled about 1.5 years in space. When you're that far out, the actual travel time is really extensive. Once he starts coming back into the system, towards the centre of the system, he's going to pick up a lot of speed, and he's going to be moving very quickly. So we're just doing our normal burn to bring out the same plane as Kerbin. And we're also doing some little movements left and right just to try and trim it up a bit, because I'm at this point trying to decide how we're going to do re-entry. I'm debating what I want to bring back. I want to try and hold on to that extra unit on the top there for as long as possible, because it is our electrical source. I'm also aware of the fact it's got the transmitter, which means the second I get rid of that, and we're doing our burn now, and this took a while. This was actually quite a big burn. It didn't eat massively into our fuel reserves, but it took a while. But I am thinking to myself, he's a scientist. He can't pilot a craft. Now, we're going to be coming in the fastest that we're ever going to re-enter Kerbin right now. Okay, you do not get faster than this from another planet, because, well, possibly from Moho, possibly from near the Kerbal sort of core, shall we say, but this is one of the fastest. In fact, no, yeah, it is the fastest. So you're not going to get faster than this. So there's going to be a lot of energy, a lot of heat there. Now, I could dump it in the atmosphere, but I get one shot of this, and I have not practiced this, and I have never brought anything back from Elu before. And you can see he's still out there a long way away, and we're on 5 years now drifting. He's now drifting past the orbit of what is that? Dres. So he's past the orbit of Dres, and he's coming in now past the orbit of Duna, and now he's just going to sling round and he's going to come back up into, so you can actually see he's actually going faster because he's actually gone partway between Eve as well. We've actually put a lot of energy into this. So I want to try and bring something back from the surface of Eeloo, because I've never brought anything back from the surface of Eeloo. I'm bringing the Kerbal back, I'm bringing Bob back, but can I bring the lander back? And that's what I decide to do. And this is, this is probably, I probably shouldn't have done this. I should have decoupled about now and then just let him just do the burning. But I thought, you know what, we've got a lot of delta V. We've overpacked delta V on this, and I wish I'd actually put more delta V on the lander, if I'm honest, because that was tight. But this transfer stage, yeah, you can see we've got, I think, 4,000 or something, 3,000 delta V at this point, and we just burn it. I mean, we're 500 kilometers up, and we're burning the engines, and we don't stop. We just keep burning and burning, and this is sped up. I think it's 4 times, and I've got it time up to 3 seconds. It's 12 times faster than it should be, and we just burn. We just keep burning. We hit the atmosphere, and we just keep burning. You see, the fuel is still going down, and the speed is going down. We hit the atmosphere. We're doing what, just about 3,000 meters per second. After all of that, we've lost 2,000-3,000 meters per second of delta V in reality. We actually skipped through the atmosphere because I didn't take it low enough. I didn't want to take it too low, because you know what, if we'd have skipped out and we didn't have solar panels, we didn't have any of this stuff, he's basically lost at that point. So here we go. This is the one. We're going to come in. We start to burn a little early because I want to get rid of that horizontal speed. Not too much of it, but just enough. So we're burning off some of that horizontal speed. Just so, because I'm aware of reheating. Now, I've left the solar panels out. I know they're going to burn off, but they might slow us down a little bit before they do, and every little bit counts right now, because I need to get as slow as possible, because that docking port holding the top of the craft to the bottom of the craft is very flimsy. So we are heating up. We're starting to get really hot, and we're going to see, there we go, that all of that top, it's gone, and then we've run out of fuel, and I ditch the transfer stage, and it flies away. It is heavy. We are actually using that top pod as a little bit of a brake. We do not have any drogue chutes on this, so we're just down to plain chutes, and we're okay. At this point, we're okay. I know that 2 big parachutes like that is enough to stop this. So we're coming down 5 meters per second, and I am elated right now. Bob looks bored, seriously. Man, he's blatantly had some sort of break while he's been traveling, because, yeah, he should be more excited by that. First man from Eeloo. So, the science from Duna, yeah, we got, 1,700 science from there. Not a massive haul. You can get more. You can get more from Minmus if you're really, pushing it. But without a scientist, we were actually quite limited on that. So that, I think that we did quite well on that. Eeloo, however, yeah, a lot better. We got considering we had less stuff there, we had less materials with us. We got twice as much science at least. We are pretty much done for science now. I after this, I go in, I unlock the science tree and everything. It's all done. Missions from now on, I do not need to worry about science. We are sorted. So we're just worrying about funds, and if I pick up another Sentinel contract or whatever, we just keep loading up on that. We got some bits back, and yep, Bob, 4-star. He's our first 4-star Kerbal. So well done to Bob. So with that, our new well done space program is going to say, have a good one and see you next time.